What's up, sons? The XFX RX480 GTR comes with some banging features that include one of the, if not the, best innovation I have seen in years on a graphics card. However, keep in mind that there are 4 different trims of this card with retailer exclusivity on some of these cards. So, in an effort to be accurate, this is the XFX RX480 GTR hard swap with LED logo, 8GB, 1288 MHz trim. Other trims include a 1338 MHz that's exclusive to Newegg, and a Best Buy exclusive that looks the same as the 1288 MHz trim. Be sure you also don't get confused on Newegg with the black edition that is also listed when you click on one of these, but will have the reference cooler. Regardless of exclusivity or trim level, they all feature the same hard swap fans, except for the black edition that I mentioned. This innovation is spectacular and even allows them to extend the fan warranty to 5 years. The fans are fastened by 2 opposing clips. To remove, simply depress one clip at a time and pull up. This reveals the unibody heatsink with composite heat pipes for easy cleaning. You will also notice the contacts that supply the fan's power. Combine a 3-year warranty with a 5-year fan warranty and easy maintenance, and it's hard to deny that this card is one of the most consumer-friendly purchases you can make, especially when you consider that you can just run down to Best Buy on a whim and pick it up. Display adapters include 3 DisplayPort 1.4 ports, a single HDMI 2.0B port, and thank God a single DVI. Next we have an 8-pin power adapter sporting a massive 6+2 power phase. While I could not find a specific spec on rated power draw, the kilowatt showed a peak of 320 watts under load. The test rig without a GPU pulls 95 watts maximum while running Cinebench, therefore the card pulls about 225 watts at peak usage. Under the hood, the card sports a 1288 MHz boost clock that we mentioned earlier, which I was able to only overclock to about 1325 MHz. I want to clarify that my overclock testing goes through 6 hours worth of tests across multiple games. While this card can easily hit 1360 MHz in canned benchmarks, it experiences crashes in both Hitman and Rise of the Tomb Raider if left at that clock. The boost clock communicates over a 256-bit bus with 8GB of GDDR5 at the standard 8000 MHz effective clock. Another note is that it falls significantly short of the XFX's own black edition in overclocking performance, and makes me question if the exclusive 1338 MHz edition would perform better. Keep in mind that it will also cost you about $30 to bump up to it. We already gushed over the fans, but for the sake of comparison, the hard swap design keeps the card at a frosty 71 degrees Celsius while overclocked during full load. If you decide to crank the fans to the sky, sound meter showed 20 decibels over ambient room noise. All benchmarks are in 1080p at highest available settings unless those settings are proprietary to either AMD or Nvidia. For example, Pure Hair in Rise of the Tomb Raider. For this particular card, I was curious about FreeSync 4K performance as well, so they will be sprinkled throughout these. In Gears of War Ultimate Edition with 4K textures on in 1080p, it performed about as well as anyone could ask for with 101.9 frames per second. If you do crank the resolution up and drop settings to medium, you get a playable 40.5 frames per second, and thanks to FreeSync, it does look good. Unfortunately, there are times when the minimum frame rate drops below the panel refresh range of 40, causing tearing. If you would like to know more about FreeSync refresh rates ranges, let me know in the comments below. TimeSpy Graphics Test 1 1 scored 44.62 frames per second, falling short of XFX's Black Edition. You will notice this is consistent across all tests. TimeSpy Graphics Test 2 is similar, as I mentioned, with 34.6 frames per second. Rise of the Tomb Raider scored 37.45 frames per second in 1080p and 31.73 frames per second in 4K at low settings. Unfortunately, in both cases, the frame rate is out of FreeSync range and you will want to play in 1080p and turn some settings down. Hitman scored 72 frames per second in 1080p and a very playable 47.2 frames per second in 4K at medium settings. While I fully understand this game is optimized specifically for this card, it's still impressive to have 4K playable experience for less than $300. The Talos Principle with Vulcan hit 121 frames per second at 1080p and also stayed very playable in 4K at 84.9 frames per second on medium settings. Keep in mind that you will want to cap that 4K frame rate to 60 FPS to stay in the FreeSync range on most 4K panels, or FreeSync panels. Total War Warhammer shows the absolute ridiculous demands of its AA with 24.6 frames per second in 1080p and 38.6 frames per second on low settings in 4K. Neither of these cases are playable and you would want to turn settings down in 1080p for a playable experience. Finally, we have the latest title from Square Enix. This was run in DirectX 11. At 1080p, it averages a playable 45.3 frames per second. There was a hitch down to 21 frames per second, but it only happened a single time, and for the most part, it stays above 40 frames per second and utilizes FreeSync if applicable. 4K at low settings is unfortunately not playable under any circumstances with an average of 23 frames per second. Wrapping things up, the GTR is an awesome card from the industrial design perspective. It's clean and functional. However, gimping the overclocking potential with multiple available trims of the card and retailer exclusivity is frankly bullshit. I know this card will do a lot more, simply enough probably with a BIOS flash to whatever the other trim levels are. As far as 4K and FreeSync performance, both are hit and miss. In the case of 4K, there are not enough games to warrant saving money with this GPU and putting towards a 4K panel instead of a better GPU. And in the case of FreeSync, you will need to be educated enough on the refresh rate ranges to set your in-game settings accordingly. This ends up being more tedious than I would like at this point, and game detection and auto optimization for G-Sync is just frankly light years ahead of AMD's offerings for FreeSync. Thanks for watching, guys. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe down below, and until next time, I'll see you next Tuesday. Watch some other videos or something.